Everybody, we can begin taking some seats. We're going to get started on our presentation. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Michael Ferris. I'm the Illinois State Treasurer, and in the Treasurer's Office, we oversee the ABLE spending program. ABLE, if you're familiar with a 529 account for college savings, ABLE 29 is a 529 account. Like a college savings account, you can save money, you can invest it. The growth is tax-free. As long as it's taken out for a university, a higher education expense. ABLE account is the same. You can put money in, you can invest it, make more. That growth is tax-free, as long as it's taken out for a disability-related expense. My staff will talk about what some of those expenses are, but there's great flexibility. Because if you have a disability, it affects so much of your life. A lot of those expenses count. A really wonderful thing is if you save your money in an ABLE account, you can save up to $100,000 in that account without losing federal benefits. If you're all here, you've all been eaten into your heads. Don't have more than $2,000 in an account for your child, for your sibling, or they're going to lose their benefits. And I understand people have distrust, they have worry. We all want to pass on something more. We want our family members to have greater financial support, with them to have the ability to do things on their own. And ABLE is a tool, our toolbox, that we give to help people lead better lives. Our staff is going to talk about this in some more detail. I'm sure you all have questions, and we're going to stay around and help out. And I know we also have people from the mayor's office as well.
Right. So we can get a picture of you and John's office. And then we'll get started. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I am taller than average. I drank a lot of milk as a kid, and a lot of vegetables, and I had a father who was 6'7". That helped too. Yeah. Well, when I talk to kids and they ask how do I get to be that tall, milk, vegetables, and everything. And then also their parents and genetics. All right, thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you,
Treasurer.
Thank you.
Apologies for the delay. My name is Trisha Leechatter. I'm the director of the Press Services here at
I think the mic might actually.
No, not that. Okay, you want to do
Good.
that?
Do you want to use them? Do you need me to start over?
Yeah, turn it on.
I need to start over. Anyway, thank you for coming. Today we have a short presentation by Illinois ABLE, by Director of Illinois ABLE in Illinois, J.J. Hanley. And that will be followed by a short presentation by Jocelyn Romosanta from Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities. She is a benefits counselor and will explain how employment can affect your benefits. So without further ado, I would like to bring J.J. up.
Thanks, Tricia. Thank you, everybody, for getting here on such a rainy day. We're going to try to make this super useful, but it will also be brief because we have to be out of here in time for the participants to have lunch. So probably lots of questions around Social Security. The goal here is give you an overview and then give Jocelyn a chance to speak about benefits and working, and then answer your questions. Sound good? Okay. So if you think, well, what about that? What about this? No worries. We'll keep providing you information as you need. I'm here to talk about Illinois ABLE accounts. Who here has heard of them? Who here has one or knows someone who has one? Great. Who here is thinking about maybe wanting one, but not sure? Cool. Okay. So let's see, John, how do I make this guy go? There we go. Okay. Briefly, ABLE accounts are a tool in your financial planning toolbox for a person who has, or by a person who has a disability, full stop. You can have a special needs trust. You can have benefits. ABLE is another asset, and it is an asset. It's an account, similar to 529 college savings, a 401k retirement account, a health savings account. That's the way to think about an ABLE account when you're thinking about whether you want one. Having an ABLE account for the person or by the person with a disability, who always is the account owner, can protect his or her federal benefits, such as SSI, SSDI, and Medicaid. The eligible person always owns the account. So you, if you are not the person with the disability, you might serve as what's called an authorized individual on the account if the account owner wants you to, or if the account owner doesn't have the legal capacity to manage the account himself. So you can be the AI, as we call it, but the person with the disability is always the account owner. Up to $17,000 a year can go into the account, more if the person is working. And the account earnings and withdrawals are all tax-free. So there are big tax benefits to these accounts. That's where it's really different from the federal benefit system. This comes under the auspices of any other kind of financial account with tax benefits, tax-free withdrawals, tax-free earnings. Okay, if you are on SSI, if you are an account owner on SSI, you can have up to $100,000 in your ABLE account without affecting your benefits. Does anybody in here, can somebody shout out, what is the asset limit, the asset test for SSI beneficiaries by the Social Security Administration? 2,000. You still have that asset test for any assets that are not in the ABLE account. But for any dollars put into and saved in the ABLE account, you are not subject to that asset test until your ABLE account gets to $100,000. That's a lot of money. The average size of an Illinois ABLE account is $10,000 right now. So that's somebody who has an ABLE account, has $8,000 more to work with, to live with, to improve quality of life with by having an ABLE account. And they're still getting their SSI. No Medicaid asset cap. In other words, if there are Medicaid asset caps aligned with whatever program somebody is receiving benefits from, having assets in an ABLE account will not impact your Medicaid. You don't have to spend down. You hear it all the time. Got to spend it down, got to spend it down, got to spend it down because I can't go above the $2,000 asset cap, not with an ABLE account. That money doesn't have to be spent down. Anybody can contribute to it. Mom, dad, friends, fundraisers, earnings, especially earnings. And this today is about working primarily. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you are an Illinois taxpayer, as I am, if I make a contribution into somebody's Illinois ABLE account, I can take a tax deduction from my state income taxes. $10,000 because I file single, 20 if you file jointly. So people open accounts, they can stop worrying about that asset cap. They open them to protect those assets so that they're not like the look backs. And if you get a large payment, if you get a lump sum from the Social Security Administration, you put that into your ABLE account, as long as it's less than 17,000 in a year, you can't put more than 17,000 a year into your account. It's protected. No more spend downs, so that you're not buying things you don't need, you're not spending money you don't need to spend. You can save for things that are meaningful, things you really want to do, or things that you may really need. So it really does help to build a greater financial future. This is the slide that I really want to focus on. We are disability advocates. We are in the community of employees, of staff, of parents, of advocates and supporters who want to ensure that the people that we love and know can work, and they should be able to work. And one of the things that having an ABLE account for a working person who owns an account, they can save more. A transitioning student who's in high school can put money into his or her ABLE account and save that money to use now or to use later. One thing to think about when you're earning, there are two tests that Social Security does, as you know. They test your earnings and they test your resources, your assets. Your earnings test will still be in place. Some people have thought, well, if I put my earnings into the ABLE account, the earnings test goes away. Jocelyn will clarify that. It doesn't go away for earnings. You don't lose your benefits, it just gets reduced, as it should. But your assets, they're protected. And those working account owners, what's the annual total contribution limit into an ABLE account? 17,000. Person who's working can put up to another 13,000 plus into the account each year from his or her earnings. Again, the earnings test still exists, but the asset test doesn't. So you can build savings for what we call qualified disability expenses, QDEs. People say, what can I spend the money on? I'm taking off my treasurer's office hat and saying practically anything. I mean, it's a subjective account. It's a self-directed account. You, the account owner, you, the authorized individual, you make the decision about how you will spend the money to maintain or improve your health, your quality of life, or your independence. So that can be pretty subjective. You know, what will build my quality of life as an individual account owner? What will help me build independence? What are the kinds of things that I can think of? You can think about this very broadly. Again, if there is, people often ask, well, how do I know if this is an approved expenditure, especially if you're in the benefit system where you gotta account for everything that's spent and it's only allowed to be used for certain expenditures. ABLE accounts aren't like that. It's your determination. The only time that you will face any questions about how the funds are spent is if the IRS audits you, as they audit anybody who's a taxpayer. If they come in and audit, you need to be able to show that the disability qualified the person to own an account. That's a condition, and that the funds were spent for these reasons. To our knowledge, and there are 47 states who administer these plans, there hasn't been an audit yet on any of the accounts, but it's our job as a disability community to be protective of these accounts so that they don't start limiting how we can spend money. And it's not okay to spend the money out of somebody's ABLE account for yourself. It has to be for the benefit of the person, obviously. So they can be construed broadly. They can cover things like groceries, rent, household upkeep, household expenses, and they're not limited to just medically necessary expenses. You can see the list. It's broad. Education, housing. This isn't the only thing. It's just an example of a sampling of how the money can be spent. Healthcare. People say often dental work that's not covered by Medicaid. Things that are job coaching, for example. Travel, transportation, accessible equipment, assistive technology, you name it. Here are the requirements to be able to be an account owner. When I said earlier that an eligible person, you may have a disability, but you may not be eligible to own one of these accounts. Here's the requirement currently. Your disability onset was before age 26. You didn't have to open the account before 26. You didn't have to have a diagnosis before 26. You just had to have the disability prior to age 26. Later on, you're going to need to have a diagnosis in hand, but you never send that into Illinois ABLE. The only time somebody might ask you for that diagnosis is if you get audited. Otherwise, was the onset before 26? Okay, that meets the first criteria. The second criteria is that you meet the standard, the definition by the Social Security Administration for level of severity that qualifies you to get benefits. You may be on benefits. You may not be on benefits. You may never be on benefits. You can still have an ABLE account. Does that make sense? The two qualifiers, before 26 and you're eligible for Social Security benefits, are already receiving them. In 2 years, the age of onset is going to go up to before age 46, but for now, it's before age 26. People often ask, and there's a real fear factor around, I don't want to have an ABLE account because I hear the government's going to take the money. I don't want to have an ABLE account because Medicaid clawback. My special needs trust attorney says, don't have one of these accounts because there's Medicaid recovery. They're going to take your money if and when you die. Right now, there are statutes of limitations that exist. So if I received certain kinds of Medicaid benefits, long-term supports and services, for example, a lot of folks who live in group homes who benefit from some of the waiver funding, if they pass away and have an ABLE account, the ABLE account is subject to recovery by our state Medicaid agency. There are a couple of things to know. A, we're working on establishing some limits around that because our state Medicaid agency's recovery time is 2 years. So that currently the account has to stay there and wait for HFS to recover. And HFS has told us verbally, we're not going to recover from these accounts. But that's not enough. What? Health and Family Services, right? Health and Family, it's the state Medicaid agency. It's the name of the state Medicaid agency. Say again? Can you repeat? Yes, so a lot of people are afraid to have accounts because they think that Medicaid is gonna come and take the money that they've saved in the account after they die. So let's think about this. Right now, there's about $10,000 average in these accounts. If I have received Medicaid benefits, certain Medicaid benefits, from the time I opened the ABLE account to the time I pass away, and a lot of those are the long-term supports and services, the kinds of benefits that cover the cost of day programming, for example, like that individuals are receiving here. Medicaid has the authority to come in after you die and not just take ABLE assets, but take any assets that are in your name to pay itself back for the benefits that were provided to you while you were alive. Personally, I get it. Medicaid is a program that is there to help people who need the help. And by recovering benefits, they can continue to keep the program operating. Other people feel very differently. This is their money. The government shouldn't be able to come and take it. But those are Medicaid rules that have existed since the early 90s. We are working with this very new program, these ABLE accounts, and saying, okay, but there's $9,000, $10,000 in the account. We know Medicaid in our state isn't going to recover it. We don't want the accounts to be left open. And somebody else who's eligible for an ABLE account could have that money and have their own ABLE account and benefit from it. It's the government. We're working slowly. We have to work with them. What I say is this is a living account, not a dying account. These accounts are meant to be used. There's a checking account option and people use it all the time for transactions. And finally, if you have $9,000 in the account and God forbid you pass away, have a big funeral, because you can use the money to pay for qualified disability expenses that are outstanding, have a really nice farewell. I know that sounds a little bit snarky, but it's just a way of thinking about it through a slightly different lens. Okay, my bad, I should have brought our paper brochures and I completely forgot them, I apologize, but you can go to illinoisable.com to learn more. You can sign up for our newsletter at illinoisable.com. You can download brochures, and you can attend a webinar. We have a webinar in the next 2 weeks. We have a couple of webinars for families where you'll get a lot more information than I've shared today. I think that's it. And I also have to say that this is recorded, right, John? The information you've heard today is not legal advice, financial advice, or any other kind of advice, and the information could change. So it's only as good as it is today, September 26, 2023. All yours, Jocelyn. Thank you.
If we have a question, do we need to get on?
So we are going to do a Q&A after both.
Yeah, after Jocelyn does hers, and then we'll take all your questions. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Romasanta. I'm from the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, and I provide benefits counseling to individuals who get SSI or SSDI or both. I have been doing this for over 20 years, and at one point we were being funded by Social Security. So I'm gonna give you an overview, but don't feel that you have to remember everything, because like with JJ, I'm only a phone call away. And this handout, the one-pager handout, I have it at the table in the back, and it has my phone number, okay? So first of all, there are two types of benefit that a person may get from Social Security. One is SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This is the Social Security check that is received on the first of the month. So if you or anybody that you know receive their check on the first of the month, they're getting SSI. And the maximum amount that the person may get for this year is $914 a month. Think about it, $914. I have spoken to a lot of SSI recipients, and they're like, you know what? $914 is nothing, especially if my rent is already $700. I want to work. But at the same time, I'm afraid to work because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my benefits, because I heard my neighbor lost their benefit, or now they owe Social Security so much money. But that's not the case. So first of all, SSI is for people with little or no work history. And so therefore, the amount that you get is $914 a month. When you are working and you're getting SSI, it's very important for you to keep in touch with Social Security on a monthly basis. You need to let them know how much money you're making, because we do not want that overpayment. The thing is with Social Security, if you do not let them know, they're not gonna know that you're working. And I have heard from a lot of people, they're like, but Social Security tax is being taken from my paycheck. How could they not know? Unfortunately, they don't know. So we have to let them know on a monthly basis, not a one-time thing. So when a person on SSI is working, what happens is Social Security will look at the person's earning for the month. They look at the monthly gross income. These are earnings before taxes are taken out. And they do a calculation. The calculation is they do not count the first $85 that you earn, and then they divide that by 2. So in other words, Social Security is looking at less than half of what the person earned when they're trying to figure out how much your SSI will be. Because there's gonna be a reduction to your SSI, and you're like, well, how could that be to my advantage if 914 is not enough? And then you're telling me that if I work, I'm not gonna get the whole 914. But you're always gonna end up with more money by working. So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say, for example, we have an SSI person who is earning $1,400 for the month. That's part-time work. That's before taxes are taken out. So after Social Security does not count the first $85, and they divide that by 2, and then the remaining is subtracted from the 914 of SSI, that person is still eligible for $256.50 of SSI. Well, you don't need to, because when you connect with me, and if you're on SSI, I can do the calculation for you. So that way you can see like, oh, okay, it is to my advantage to work. So for example, that person who earns $1,400 a month, their SSI will go down to $256.50. So that's a drastic drop, right, from 914. But once we add everything up, the $1,400 from work, and then the adjusted $256.50, that person now have $1,656.50 for the month. Even after we take taxes out, it's still more than 914. And guess what? When you're working, again, you know how they take out federal, state, and Social Security taxes out? That's a good thing for you. Because for one thing, did you know that when you're working, you're paying into 2 accounts at Social Security? One is retirement, and then the other one is disability. You know how some people, they tell you, oh, I'm not getting 914, I'm getting a lot more than that. And you're like, how? Because that person worked and had put enough credits into Social Security. They call them quarters. So in order to be switched over from SSI to SSDI, which we're gonna talk about later, you need at least 5 years of work, because you need 20 quarters. To qualify for retirement, you need 10 years of work, or 40 quarters, okay? So if you are on SSI and you're like, well, I think I wanna work, you are in a good position to go to work, because like I said, even though your SSI is gonna go down, it's still good for you to work because it's still gonna be more money for you. Did you know that, let's say for example, that you found a job that pays you $2,500 a month. What's gonna happen to my SSI and Medicaid? Well, you're not gonna get an SSI payment, but you're not cut off. It's just suspended. They're just holding the check for that month. But you ended up with $2,500. So I tell people, think of it this way. You exchange the 914 with 2,500, whatever that is after taxes, only for that month. And you still get to keep your Medicaid card, because your Medicaid card will not be affected until you're making more than $3,173 gross per month, okay? So nothing's gonna happen to your Medicaid. And also, in order for your SSI and Medicaid to completely terminate, you have to work 1 full year, and you have to earn at least $38,000 for the year. And let's say that happens. Let's say you found this great job that pays you more than $38,000 a year. And of course, you're gonna get cut off from SSI and SSDI. What happens if you stop working? If you stop working for whatever reason, you need to let Social Security know. They're gonna put you back on SSI and Medicaid. No reapplication is needed, okay? And then, now, the only thing with SSI and Medicaid, you cannot have more than $2,000 in the bank. And this is why it's important that we introduce you to the ABLE account. That's one of the things to use that for, okay? So I'm gonna switch it over to SSDI and then we're gonna take questions. So SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, this is the check that is received on the 3rd of the month or later in the month. And these are individuals that have the work history. And the amount that they get depends on how much money that's put into the Social Security tax system. So again, the more money you earn, the more taxes are taken out, the more money you're gonna be eligible for when you are on SSDI. So take advantage if you are on SSI. Because unlike with SSI, where there's a reduction to your benefit, not with SSDI. The first time a person goes back to work, you have those 9-month trial work period. And during those 9 months that you are completing, you can earn as much money as you want. No income limit for you. So you need to take advantage of that. When I counsel people who are on SSDI, and we're not sure if any of those months have already been used, I connect with Social Security. And I do need your Social Security number because that's how they look you up. We just want to make sure, well, how many trial work period does this person already completed and how many do they have left? Because so that way they can take advantage of it. Because once you complete the 9-month trial work period, you go into what is called extended period of eligibility, and that runs for 3 years. That's the time that Social Security will see how much money you're making each month to determine if you're eligible for your SSDI check or not. For this year, it is set at $1,470 gross per month. That means after you complete the 9-month trial work period, any months that you earn $1,470 or more gross per month, you're not going to get that SSDI check. But if you make less than $1,470 gross per month, you get your check. So you see how it's important to keep in touch with Social Security? So that way they can keep track of the 9-month trial work period, and then after that, they know when to send you a check and not to send you one, and we avoid overpayments. And also, guess what? If you know any individuals who are blind, that's how they receive benefits through blindness, and they're on SSDI, that limit goes up. Instead of the $1,470 for the non-blind, for the blind, that goes up to $2,460. So that's very important to know too. And people who are on SSDI also qualify for Medicare, the red, white, and blue card. That's not affected for at least 8.5 years. Okay, and then if you get Medicaid, you're gonna have what is called a Medicaid spend down. So think of it like an insurance deductible. If you should have a Medicaid spend down, let's say you ended up with a $200 Medicaid spend down. That just means in order for you to continue to use your Medicaid card, you have to submit at least $200 worth of medical expenses to public aid on a monthly basis to meet your spend down. If you're not able to meet the spend down, there is another program. It's called Health Benefits for Workers with Disabilities, or it's a Medicaid buy-in program. For a low monthly premium, you can get Medicaid, okay? So one last thing. If you're only getting SSDI and Medicare, nothing from public aid like Medicaid or SNAP, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. But if you're getting anything from public aid, if you're getting SSI, if you're getting SSDI, Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP, we still have that asset limit. So we have to be careful with that, okay? So I know it's a lot of information, but the handout is in the back. My phone number is 312-746-5743. I'm the only one that answers that phone. So you're gonna get me if I'm in the office. So we're gonna open it up for questions. Any question on anything that we talked about? Yes. phone number again? 312-746-5743. 5743? That's correct. Thank you. What's your name? Jocelyn.
Over here,
Yeah.
so we can see ourselves on that little thumbprint.
There you go.
Yeah, I also have my business cards right here.
Yeah, I have two questions. One for
Sure.
Able account and one for Social Security. For the Able account, so what is actually the difference or the benefit, or why do I need an Able account versus a special needs trust? That's one, and the follow-up question to that is, based on what you said, if the person passed away, whatever that is left, so having somebody with disability, the person has a guardian, I assume. So the guardian make decision for, the money. So can the guardian appoint a beneficiary for the account?
Okay, so two questions. The first one is, why do I need an ABLE account instead of a special needs trust? They are not either or. A special needs trust is different. It has a trustee associated with it. It can cost a pretty significant amount of money to set it up. It's typically set up as and I'm not an expert in special needs trust. It's set up with the help of an attorney, and you can put things other than cash into that account, typically, but not always, to take care of the beneficiary after family parents pass away, to take care of the beneficiary. The beneficiary has no control over those assets. It is not an either or. You can have a special needs trust and you can have an ABLE account. There are some things that a special needs trust cannot be used for. I believe it's housing expenses, maybe rent, and so some folks set up the special needs trust, and then they'll establish it such that funds go from the trust into the person's ABLE account every month to pay for rent or pay for housing that the trust can't pay for. So they're setting up an ABLE account is a lot less expensive, but it does serve a slightly different purpose. Your second question was?
If, I said, person with disability is the person who has a guardian.
Guardians, yes. Yes, a guardian can open and manage the Illinois ABLE account for the person with the disability if the person with the disability does not have legal capacity. So in other words, if a person's under guardianship in our state, he or she doesn't have legal capacity to open and manage the account for himself. You as the guardian can open it and manage it for him.
And can you appoint a beneficiary?
No, you can't appoint, the beneficiary would be the account owner. So if you open the account, it would be open for, let's say, the person with the eligible person with the disability, he will be the beneficiary, you'll just be managing it. So yes, you can appoint the account owner. You're not appointing him, he is always going to be the account owner. But you as the guardian would open and manage the account for him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it also just like you make decisions for the person.
That's correct.
Why can't you say this is what's gonna happen to the money?
That's correct. That's correct. So, and that's the responsibility of a guardian to begin with, right? Is to make decisions for the benefit of the person who can't make it for himself. Yes.
Do you have to, okay, for to open a special needs account, does there have to be a guardian, or it doesn't have?
Are you talking about a special needs trust?
No, I'm not sorry, an ABLE account, I messed up.
It depends upon the legal status of the individual, the eligible individual.
Oh.
So if I'm an adult with a disability and I'm my own guardian, I have not gone under guardianship, I can open the account and manage it for myself. If I don't want to do that, I can, or if I don't want to do it alone, I can grant power of attorney to another adult to help manage it with me, or to manage it for me. So if you have legal capacity as an adult, you can do those two things. If you're a minor, a parent or legal guardian must open and manage the account for you. If you're an adult without legal capacity, in other words, you are under guardianship, a guardian is the first in line to be able to open and manage it for you. But there are several others in the order of priority that could also potentially open it and manage it for you. Yes.
Are only certain institutions able to provide able accounts?
The ABLE accounts, the legislation means, and anytime you say the state of Illinois, it's like, whoa, and money is like, whoa, don't want to go near that. Don't want anything to do with the Illinois and money. But the states have to pass legislation to allow for these federally approved accounts to be opened in each state. So there are 47 states that administer the account. My job is never to touch your money. My job is to make sure that the program manager that's brought in to handle the program manages the money correctly. And you can, or the account owner can select from 7 different investment options, including a checking account, to invest your money, and you can withdraw the money. If you have a checking account option, you can write checks and have debit cards.
So are we opening the able accounts with the state or with the bank?
You're going to open it, great question. You cannot go to a bank to open these. You have to go to Illinois ABLE. And you can open with any state that offers the plan to out-of-state residents. So I speak for Illinois ABLE, but I can also say it's always recommended to look at your own state's plan first because of the potential tax benefits and other benefits. But you can look at other states for sure. But you can't go to a bank. You have to go to the state plan. In our state, it's called IL-ABLE or Illinois ABLE.
Can you explain if it's Fifth Third? I think that's.
Yes, the checking account option is managed by and held by Fifth Third Bank. Fifth Third Bank does have bricks and mortar in the state of Illinois, but you cannot go in to open an ABLE account or transact on your ABLE account at Fifth Third Bank. You have to go through Illinois ABLE. However, you can go to one of 55,000 ATMs and withdraw money from your ABLE account to use to pay expenses. Does that answer the question? Yes.
And that was something you said about, on the death of the individual with the able account, that the Medicaid payback is not necessarily going to happen.
I would have misspoken if I said that Medicaid payback isn't going to happen, other than that our communications with our state Medicaid agency have been verbally, nothing in writing, verbally, they won't claw back. However, and we've had, some deceased individuals, and our state agency has never come in and recovered. Other states do. Iowa recovers actively. Their Medicaid agency is very active, but we know that our Medicaid agency has said that they won't recover from these accounts, but the law says that they're required to. The regulations say they have to, and that's why we.
So then what should the family of the individual who has, what should they be doing with the money sitting in that able account?
Right, and that's where we sit together. I am actively working to have what we call a safe harbor, where we say, you know what, we can't let these accounts sit open and dormant for 2 years while we know our Medicaid agency isn't going to come and recover them, but they could at any time. So I can say that, but I'm presuming that they're going to recover, that they're not going to recover. New Medicaid director could say, oh yeah, we're gonna go in and take all those assets. There's not many of them, and some of these accounts have $300 in them. But so we're working to develop a safe harbor so that hopefully it does have to stay open for 6 months, and then we can release the funds to a successor beneficiary. We're also working at the national level to try to get some legislation to prevent Medicaid from having the authority to recover. I just don't think that's going to pass. So we have to find another way around it. There are other states that are releasing the money right away and saying to the estate and the executor or the administrator, they're saying, we're giving you this money, but you must know that Medicaid has the authority to recover. So the responsibility in you will be the one dealing with Medicaid if they do come in and say, hey, there were funds there.
What would the timeline like that on that be? I mean, you're saying if they release the funds back to you, Medicaid come back in a year or 2 or 3 or 5. And say,
well, I think that gets into a legal area. I would say because the statute of limitations in our state is 2 years, that it would be within 2 years, but I'm not an attorney, so that's me speculating. Again, these are not big accounts, at least not yet. I don't mean to minimize this issue, but I think it's gotten way overblown in our disability community, and I'm part of that, to worry about this clawback issue. Meanwhile, people who have the accounts are living better and using the funds and benefiting from them. But it is an issue that we are dealing with very actively, so I appreciate that question.
Yes, yes, if I understood you to say you can add 17,000 a year.
Right.
To that, and that could be from a combination of things.
Yeah.
Let's say I have someone with a disability who is working and who is earning enough that he's making more than $17,000, just a little more less. Is the 17,000 a net over the year? You know, like at the end of the year, there hasn't been more than 17,000, so that if there's 17 in there now, if he takes out 1,000 for expenses and then.
Right, great question. It's a gross number, it's a fixed number, so if he puts in $17,000 and he takes 2,000 out, he can't put in another 2,000 and stay under that. But what he can do, so 17,000 total annual contribution limit from all sources. If he's working, he can contribute above 17,000. The formula is either the gross poverty amount, which is 13,000 something 90 right now. So if he earns 20,000, he could put 13,000 something in addition into his account above the 17,000. So I think I'm answering your question in a backward way, but.
Yeah, so if the 17,000 is coming solely right now just from his earnings.
Yeah.
He still can go 13.
He can put in another up to the gross poverty amount up to, so it's now like 27,000. I'm not good at math in my head, but yeah. Yes.
Do we have to know and keep track of all the numbers all the time, or if we're reporting to Social Security every month, is there a place we can look to see what's being tracked?
Are you talking about Social Security benefits or what's in your ABLE account?
How what you've been putting into the account impacts your Social Security.
How what you put into your ABLE account
Yes.
impacts Social Security and the Social Security benefits? It's a good question. The plan has to report every month the assets that are in your ABLE account. So we'll send the Social Security number securely, of course, and we're required by law to say this account has $10,000 in it. And Social Security just monitors that. When you get close to $100,000, we will let you know that you're getting close to that number. And if you do go above it, you'll temporarily, similar to what you described, Jocelyn, your benefits will be suspended. You don't lose your eligibility, but they'll be suspended until you go back down below 100,000.
Is there a minimum to the account?
$25.
Where can I open the account?
Go to illinoisable.com, and I really messed up in not bringing brochures, but I can give, what's the best way to do this, Tricia? I also didn't bring a sign-up sheet, but if you want to give me.
We have a sign-up sheet, so we can email out the slides.
Great.
And that. So if you
Perfect,
wanna
so
send
you'll
us-
get the information. Okay, thanks, John.
You have a question?
Jocelyn.
What is your question?
My question is, how did I say? Okay, I retired, but I'm not getting, I'm planning to apply for my social security. But I was told by whatever, that if I get social security, my daughter will need to, she's getting SSDI, and she will use her Medicaid, so.
No, not necessarily. So what Social Security told you is if you get approved for SSDI, then your daughter can also get approved for SSDI. Is that what it is?
My retirement, I work.
Yeah.
Oh, retirement benefits.
Okay.
So if I start getting social security retirement, my daughter who's on SSI will move to.
To SSDI under your account.
Yeah, but
Yes.
she will lose her Medicaid.
No, not necessarily. It depends on how much she's eligible for under your account. So chances are, no, she gets to keep Medicaid, and then in 2 years, she'll be eligible for Medicare as well. No, she won't. You have my number, so when the time comes, you can give me a call. Okay? Any question about SSI or SSDI or ABLE account? Okay.
We will, John's gonna make sure that if your email address is on this clipboard, that we will get the brochure and the information to you.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I mean, please